Welcome to Upfront. We're coming to you from Campbell River Shaw TV studios. I'm Mary Ruth Harris, and joining me is Mayor Andy Adams of the City of Campbell River. Welcome.
Great to be here, Mary Ruth, and I understand this is the inaugural show of Upfront, so
It is.
Thank you for asking me.
And we are going to talk mainly about issues today. Some of the issues facing smaller towns across Canada are becoming more innumerable. Everything from transportation to housing to jobs. So which of those three is Campbell River really wrestling with right now?
Yes.
All of the above.
All of them.
Okay.
The one thing that has been consistent, and last month I was in Victoria for the BC Mayor's Caucus, and then we had another meeting at the AVICC, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but infrastructure is the number one issue for all communities, large and small.
Okay.
With aging sewer pipes, water systems, sewage systems, sidewalks, roads, the whole, and then you throw in sea level rise for coastal communities,
Okay.
Really creates some challenges.
Now, the 2016 census for Campbell River, there was 35,138 people.
If you say so.
But then there's also the Strathcona district of
Yes.
which you belong. And I understand there's 5 municipalities in the Strathcona district?
There is Isabellis, Sayward, Tassus, Gold River.
Quadra Island.
No, Quadra is an electoral area.
Oh,
so
okay.
you have Area D
Okay.
with Director Lee, and then Quadra is another electoral area, Cortez is another one,
Okay.
and then there's the Sayward Valley that surrounds the village of Sayward.
Okay.
That is the 4th electoral area.
Now, how closely do you find yourself working with those they're much smaller than Campbell River, but is there any sort of crossover in trying to solve some of these infrastructure issues?
The infrastructure issues are more individual to the municipalities. Now, we advocate through the Strathcona Regional District
Okay.
for improvements like the Q Cove Sewer Project for Director Abrams over on Quadra,
Okay.
or if it's a road upgrade for Mayor McDonald in Sayward, where we will help each other out with applications and put in letters of support, or if we have the opportunity to talk to a minister and we know that this is a critical issue for them, we may have a better opportunity to speak more frequently, so can advocate on their behalf.
Now, you mentioned sewers and roads, and I understand that the federal government in the last budget and the budget before that were offering up quite a bit of money to cities and towns across Canada to deal with those issues specifically. So have you started that process of requesting those funds?
We have gone beyond requesting. We've actually been very successful in receiving some. And so when we sat down last fall and did our 2017 10-year financial plan, we laid out what the critical replacement plan was for our infrastructure. And then with that, set out our priorities for 2017 and 2018 as getting to the conceptual design, then detailed design, and then to construction. But in some cases, we're doing the conceptual design to prepare for an application for when a grant opportunity comes in.
Okay.
As it turned out, 2 did come up, and we were successful on both of them. And one was in partnership with our shared regional solid waste with the Comox Valley and the Strathcona Regional District. So we had put in a grant application to do organics collection and tied in with our Normwood Environmental Center here in Campbell River. And what that means is that the entire Comox Valley and Campbell River and Area D and Sayward can benefit from reduced amount going into the landfill by taking the organics and having it out. Now, pilot programs are currently running in Cumberland and Comox.
Yes.
But this is to make it right across the board and to have a proper system on how you're going to handle it. What that will mean, excuse me, is that all of the solid waste will go to will go to the new facility at Pigeon Lake in Cumberland.
Okay.
So we've set up transfer stations to be able to take everything down there from here as we close our landfill here in Campbell River and close the landfill in Gold River and Tassus and Sayward. So taking everything, then the idea is to backhaul the organics up to Campbell River and get some economies of scale in your transportation. So that was one. On the roads, you've seen that we have done two major upgrades on the south end of Campbell River through 19A. The first section was running through Willow Point, where you see the beautiful trees and sidewalks and seawalk and the underground lighting.
It is quite pretty.
The next section that we did a couple of years back was then running from Willow Point up to the Sims Creek area.
Okay.
So we're doing blocks of 1 to 1.5 kilometers at a time, which are running at about $10 million per kilometer to do. So we had the plan already done going from Sims Creek up to Rockland.
Okay.
The feds put the grant applications out, and we were successful.
Okay.
So in addition to all of the capital infrastructure projects that we were already doing, we now have two significant projects, of one in the neighborhood of 10 million and the other one in 8 million added on to that capital works projects for this year.
So is that just for 2017, or is that going to carry over to 2018 and into 2019?
Yeah, it will probably, for a project of that scope,
Okay.
takes a good 1.5 to 2 years just in design process,
Okay.
and before you can get to construction.
And when you get to the construction, what are you talking about in terms of local jobs that will be generated out of that construction?
That's a good question. When you've got a total dollar amount of $10 million, then through the design stage, all of your surveyors, your engineering firms that are local, if they're successful on the RFP, and then you have your contractors once you get it done. So it's a good thing it's going to be a couple of years out, because we're just finishing the hospital this September.
Yes.
And we're still have the $1 billion John Hart generating station replacement.
And that'll be another 2 years.
That's going to be another
completion,
2
right?
years.
Okay.
And we have the largest capital project the city has ever undertaken, and that's the replacement of our whole water supply system, but also the water treatment at $30 million. So most of the contractors are pretty overly subscribed with work.
Right.
And if there's a way that we can try to phase this in so they
Right.
can go right from one project into
To the
another
other.
to keep
Right,
the
of
contractors
course.
working.
So the water treatment plant, when is that going to, what's the ballpark time frame of when that would start?
Next year, sometime
year.
in 2018.
So after the hospital is finished?
Yes.
And the hydro is sort of, will be winding down, because then they'll be into the specialties at that point.
Well, they're already into the specialties
Oh,
now
are they?
in building the actual generating station itself. So a lot of the tunnel work has been complete.
Okay.
But then when it winds down, then the $400 million project starts up.
Right.
And that's going to be the seismic dam upgrade that will go on till 2024 or 2025.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you have that in fairly good hand, and thankfully the federal government is coming to the table to support these projects right across Canada.
Well, that was the great news that happened at the UBCM convention last September, where Minister Sohi from the federal government stood up and said that the federal government was upping their share. So instead of the traditional a third, he committed that the federal government would fund 50% of all major capital projects.
Oh.
Minister Fassbender from the province then stood up right after and said that the province was committed to maintain their 33% share. What that means for rural and smaller communities, well, the cost of these projects keep escalating, so they're pretty significant. And for us to try to get that 30% share to do all of the things that need to be addressed was challenging. So now that it's only 17%, knowing that there are always contingencies and there are cost overruns, and sometimes you want to do some extra, it provides some more flexibility for the municipalities.
Okay. We are going to take a short break. You are watching Up Front. Welcome back. You're watching Upfront on Shaw TV. We are in the Campbell River Shaw TV studio. I'm Mary Ruth Harris, and my guest today is Mayor Andy Adams of the City of Campbell River. Now, in the month of April, Campbell River played host to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities 2017 convention. How did you land that?
With a lot of hard work, but also very strategically.
Okay.
We have, this council with great support has transitioned our economic development and tourism strategies. So we went out and hired Canada Strategies to develop a 5-year tourism plan.
Oh,
From there made a decision to contract out our tourism operations and just made the award a couple of weeks ago to Destination Think, which is an international tourism operator with offices in the Gold Coast in Australia, Holland, Banff, Vancouver, and such. But one of the things that we were doing last fall prior to getting this all in place was to apply for the MRDT or hotel tax to Minister Bond so that we had more funding, as most other communities do, for marketing and promotion of tourism.
okay.
One of the ways that we were working with the accommodators was to demonstrate that we were working to increase their business, particularly in the shoulder seasons.
Okay.
And part of that was to go after small and medium-sized conferences.
Right.
So we applied to host the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, which had over 300 delegates here, filled every hotel in town, and was a great experience. But we've also got the Sustainability Conference of 175 people coming up next month. Then we have the Airport Electricians Association coming up here.
Wow.
Then right after Canada Day, we have 3,000 people coming in. We won a bid for hosting the BC Elders Gathering. And that was in combination with the Wewakai and the Wewakam First Nation.
Right.
And then right after the August long weekend, we were successful in getting the winning the grant winning the award for hosting 2017 Travel Journeys, which will bring 5,000 people into Campbell River. So it was very strategic to go after things, and we're already taking a look as to which ones we're going to be applying for next year, and take advantage of the momentum that we're building from what was a great AVICC convention to start it off.
Now, at the AVICC convention, one of the topics was forestry management and sustainability. Is that in the top 5 priority for Campbell River?
It's in the top 2.
Okay.
We talked about infrastructure sustainability, which is a local issue, but from an economic driver for not only the Mid and North Island, but all of British Columbia, forestry is critically important.
Okay.
So we are the center for most of the forest companies for the North Island and Central Coast. We have contractors here that are working all the way up to Haida Gwaii, and the amount of economic activity that they generate and jobs that they generate for all of the communities in the North Island is critically important, as is aquaculture.
Right.
Hugely important for us. And we believe that both have kind of gotten a bad rap from other parts of the province that don't understand how important these industries are for the economy of the province, but also how environmentally sustainable they can be.
And there's my question right there. So with forestry, you cut a tree down and you have no more trees. So do you find that the forest companies are now taking a much more responsible approach to reforestation after they've cut? And are they still clear cutting, or are they changing their processes?
The whole operation of forestry has changed dramatically, and for them to be able to live up with their license applications for their allowable cut means that they have to operate in an environmental sustainable manner. So that means reforestation. It means full repatriation of where they're putting in a road to access those points to take it out. Protection of all of these streams, particularly if they're fish-bearing or drinking water.
Or watershed, like Comox Valley has
so
had a huge issue, but that's because it's private land and they're not held to the same rules that the Crown land is held to. So that's an issue too, but that's...
And the Comox Valley water system is also system related in how you're accessing and treating the water. So,
Right.
so
Okay.
there's a whole pile of,
Yes.
of issues. But Minister Thompson for Forest Lands and Range has been very active in ensuring that there is sustainability
Okay.
for not only for the industry, but more importantly for the environment.
Okay. And if they're approaching it from a sustainability point of view, that means longevity for all of the people that are working in the industry. And is that where you find that you have the strongest voice in advocating for your citizens?
Well, and it's not just the citizens of Campbell River or the North Island. Without forestry, there would be a huge problem in Victoria in providing the programs right across the province.
Okay.
So, and the other aspect is in forestry, it is becoming far more technical. You have companies like Strategic Forest here in Campbell River, or Capacity, that have more registered professional foresters or qualified environmental engineers that are ensuring that it's best practices going forward.
Okay.
But the other thing is that you've got companies like TMAR, George Lambert and his son, manufacturing steep slope grapple yarders that are highly computerized and highly technical that we're selling to New Zealand.
New Zealand.
New Zealand, and these are incredible machines that are accessing areas that were fairly unsafe for workers to go in before, that technology is being developed here. You've got Dennis Cambry at York Machine Shop that is doing manufacturing of parts and pieces for all over the world.
Oh, okay.
It's not just the worker in the bush. It's
Right.
it's the level of the technical people and
Right.
the all of the support that goes with it.
Okay. Now, you mentioned aquaculture. Can you explain what that is? Because I hear the term thrown around quite a bit, and I've actually heard people talking about it, and it doesn't sound at all like they have the right sort of explanation for it. So what is aquaculture?
Easiest way I can explain is that the number one agricultural product in BC is blueberries.
Is what?
Blueberries.
Blueberries.
That's the number one agriculture.
Okay.
So agriculture is farming on land.
Okay.
The second largest agriculture product that we are exporting out of BC is salmon. And that's aquaculture, which is farming in the water.
Because we are the salmon capital of the world.
We are Campbell River is the salmon capital of the world. And I like to keep using that. I like to keep reminding Mayor Rutan and Fort Alberni and anybody else that wants to hear. But the reason why I say that is that Campbell River is, with the Campbell River itself and the Oyster River and the Salmon River all running
Yes.
through these areas, we have every species of salmon spawning and migrating back to this area.
Okay.
But we are also the home for the three top salmon farming companies in Western Canada. All of their head offices are here, and that'd be Grieg Seafood, Cermak, and Marine Harvest. But we also have the head office for the BC Salmon Farmers Association. And the job that they are doing in expanding the markets, and again, similar to what we just talked about forestry, the level of technology has gone through the roof in the last 10 years. So where the industry was pretty much the wild, wild west when they first started about 20 years ago, and they were doing some pretty bad things that really didn't do, like overfeeding and the waste and being placed in the wrong places.
And I don't think they've completely recovered from that either. Like, I still will talk to people and they're like, I'm never having farmed salmon, ever.
Correct. But that being said, the demand for the product is exceeding what we can produce.
Where is that demand coming from?
We're sending probably 15% of the product from here is going direct to Asia.
Okay.
45% is going to Western and Central United States, and the rest is being consumed in Western Canada.
Wow.
And there is an insatiable demand for it, and the export markets going particularly to China, Korea, and Japan have increased exponentially over the past 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that. You're watching Up Front. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Our guest today is Mayor Andy Adams of the City of Campbell River. We are going to take a short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Up Front. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Our special guest today is Mayor Andy Adams of the City of Campbell River. Now, Andy, you mentioned in the first section of the show that housing was one of the challenges. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that right across Canada, that it's a big issue. The costs of a normal single-family dwelling has skyrocketed out of most people's realm of reality. So there is a movement afoot in North America and in Europe towards tiny houses. Now, is there any movement within the City of Campbell River Council towards finding some zoning for that, or do you have zoning in place already?
We don't. We have talked about it, but our first priority for housing is just to follow the housing first policy and affordable housing and accessibility for shelter and a home for everyone. As far as the tiny houses, we just completed a review of our Sustainable Official Community Plan. Oh, okay. That's a 5-year review. It didn't come up in any of the community consultation, even though Councillor Kerr and I are very much aware of what's happening and the movement that's going on. But we have been fortunate enough to have the ear of Minister Coleman and BC Housing and some organizations like the John Howard Society and Macola to really do some significant affordable housing initiatives here in Campbell River that is providing the need for the lower income and most vulnerable in our population. We are going, though, I will say this, that there has been a significant increase in multifamily housing development. Okay. So where you traditionally had single-family lots with a single home, we have seen an awful lot of patio and duplex and triplex developments that have been happening. Okay. So they're not the tiny homes, but they are downsizing and providing an affordable option.
Do you find that the homeless population in Campbell River is dwindling, or is there still a substantial number?
We talked about that this morning, actually, at our Committee of the Whole, and we are going to do another homeless count this September, just to see where we're at. I will say, again, with the help of John Howard Society and the Ministry and BC Housing, that we have managed to find those rent supplements to be able to house the people that didn't have a home a couple of months ago. So in regards to the capacity that we had at the emergency all-weather shelter that we provided in the winter, the numbers were down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen a situation in Toronto on multiple occasions in the last year where people are getting renewal notices and their rent is being doubled or in some cases tripled, like going from $1,200 to $3,600. In my mind, how is that even possible? And do you have rent controls in place in Campbell River?
We don't have rent controls, but I think what we've experienced right across the country was for the last 20 to 25 years, there was nobody was building an apartment block. They were building condos.
Right.
And that has changed over the last couple of years, and actually the largest apartment developer in Western Canada is based here in Campbell River at Seymour Pacific and Broad Street Properties. Okay. So they have built over 6,000 units in Western Canada of apartment buildings, and we've had 4 apartment buildings built in the last 2 years here in Campbell River, which then is a case of supply and demand.
Right.
So if there are very, very few rental apartments available, the price goes up. The more opportunities there are, it levels out and becomes a little bit more reasonable.
I know we have to wrap up very quickly, but I did want to ask this. Portland has a great example of this where they've taken a piece of city land and they've put 30 or 40 tiny houses on it and created a little community out of that. Is that something you and the council might consider moving forward?
No, it's not something we might consider. We are doing it.
You are doing it, okay.
Not necessarily for tiny homes, but we started about 6 years ago with Habitat for Humanity, where the city gives them the land, waives the development fees,
Okay.
provides all the utilities, and they have built 3 duplexes here in Campbell River, and the one that we just turned the ground on was a 1 acre parcel on Hilchey Road that they're doing 11 units on that one parcel.
Oh, okay.
That will all be a partnership between Habitat for Humanity and the city of Campbell River.
Okay.
So we're getting some densification, providing affordability for people that, as Habitat for Humanity likes to say, are looking for a hand up, not a handout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate your time. And it's been very insightful, and there are so many more issues we could have talked about. This could have easily been a 2-hour show.
Absolutely, but I really appreciate you starting this off doing it alphabetically because I was starting with A, so to do your first show, but always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You've been watching Up Front. We've been coming to you from the Shaw TV studios in Campbell River. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Thank you for joining us.